Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today here at FFG Live. Very excited to be joined by my two favorite game designers at FFG.
Of course.
We have Brooks.
Hello.
And Philip.
Hello.
So, yeah, we're going to be talking a lot about Descent today.
Yeah, we are.
And I'm very excited for it. I know we've been talking about it a lot, and
you've been plugging your ears a lot.
I've been plugging my ears a lot. My group is so close to finishing Act 1, but because we're all, adults with jobs and families and things, we just...
Those things don't matter.
I've tried to tell my wife that, but she does not agree with me. So, yes, we're trying to get through it, but I am going to do my best to not plug my ears while you're talking today. I'll just, hum.
Well, mostly we're talking about the physical stuff.
That's true, and I've seen that.
We won't get too heavy into story things.
Okay.
Next time we're here,
the next stream that
it's going to be impossible to avoid.
Right, I'm going to get very sick and not be able to watch that stream. Sorry.
Sure.
Sorry to hear that, but sorry to say that.
Condolences.
Thanks.
So this is your last chance, your last stream, where we are going to be trying to avoid spoilers. After this, it's just not going to be possible.
Yeah, and we're continuing the story right where it left off, so it's hard to talk about that if you're not telling where we left off. So.
Right. That's fair. I will just have to deal with it when that time comes. But today, like you said, we're looking at what's in the box.
Yeah.
So let's get the box.
The giant purple box.
The gorgeous art. I loved Act 1's art, but there's something about this purple that just pops.
Well, and the stained glass on the insert.
It makes me super duper happy. So, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's get right into it. Well, actually, you know what? Who wants to do the honors? I'm not going to.
I have the worst fingernails for getting through shrink. They'll just fold like construction paper.
I usually just bite it. All right, there we go.
And we're cracked. All right.
And that's actually perfect because now you can just throw the plastic on the floor and then it won't be at my feet. Okay, so we're going to crack the box open.
Yeah.
So, as per the usual, we've got rules. Right? Got rules. We've got an assembly guide. Luckily for us, we have one of those super fancy. I don't know if anybody in the chat has seen it or anybody watching has seen it. We've got this really cool machine that builds all of our punch for us, so we're not going to need this today. So, yeah.
And that machine is named Josh.
What? I don't know what you're talking about. These we're going to we're going to hold off on these.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got
Minis. We'll get a better look at these.
Yeah, we'll talk
these
about
those later.
We've got the materials for the machine. And then we've got
6 sheets of punch.
all of the cards.
And we have a lovely middle box.
Yeah, like with the first
Lots
one, we
of
did
new art.
the stained glass layer. We get to see let's go side. This side is all the barons who are active in the story. Big, well, not all the barons because there's 13 of them, but bigwigs in Terranoth. We've got the dwarven clans. We've got some Athuk, some Wildlanders, and some Far Rangers. And we've got the Free Cities, all of whom are major power players in Act 2, and it's up to the players which of those factions they recruit to the cause.
Yep. All right, and I can't remember. Are we talking? We're talking about the last bit in the box.
Yeah, I think, like before, we give you our bottom layer here to store all this terrain in, because there's a fair amount.
You need it.
It won't fit in your Act 1 box as well. But the other fun thing we've got here is... This time we went ahead and made this a game piece. So keep this, you'll need it. We use it in several maps as either the platform, where it's just like this, or the vault, where it's flipped over and stuff gets placed down in there. It's gridded, so it's a 9x9 grid, just like our tiles are. It lets us do some really crazy stuff with our map builds. And
I'll
that's-
line some pieces up to it later.
Yeah, it's a great
Get some
example
punch board
of
out.
kind of parallel thought, where on the design team we were talking like, it would be kind of cool if we did this, but I'm not sure we're willing to push for it. And then somebody on our visual design team said, you should totally do this. And we went, well, I guess if more than one person had this idea, it must be a good one. Let's do it.
Nice.
So,
yeah, I do remember the first time that I play tested with any physical stuff. Having this on the table just made it feel so much grander.
yeah,
It gives
That's
us a
more
lot
exciting.
more board presence
Mhm.
to work with, a lot more level changes we can
Yeah.
do, and
Yeah.
some very cool verticality stuff. This is the same height as our, I'm going to call them medium pillars. They're referred to as tall pillars. They're medium for reasons you'll see in a moment. So those 2-notch pillars are the same height as this, so we can just build straight onto it or straight off it. We can build on top of this because it's nice and stable. We do some very fun map stuff.
Nice.
yeah, we do.
All right. Well, since we're going through the box, let's just, pretend that we've gone top to bottom. And
Yeah.
let's start talking about some minis.
Really nice.
So we do also have the machine that pulls all the minis out of the plastic for us over here. So it is nice having the mold, though. Don't get me wrong, holding everything in place and keeping it all very safe. So we're going to start with some heroes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're our main characters.
And I specifically said some because we're not going to show them all super close up, but we want to show you some of the new sculpts and how amazing they are.
Yeah, we've got a close look at Cyrus and Varix coming up in future
Yep.
articles, so we're not going to talk about them a whole lot because we're going alphabetically. That's why they're last.
Yeah. All right, so tell me a little bit about Galadin.
All right, Galadin has gotten a pretty big glow up from Act 1 because all of a sudden he has a family. He's not the loner weirdo anymore. He has friends and he has a support network. He's also getting into a little bit thicker into some fighting, so he's a little more armored up. We swapped him over to his other weapons, to his dual blades. All our hero sculpts are with their alternate weapons. We anticipate some players are going to swap on the board.
Oh, yeah.
I know for sure my wife is going to do that. Just swap out pieces to be accurate.
Yep.
So Galadin is a little less haggard, but still driven to fight his enemies. So here he has his double blades and a little more armor than he had before. Still got the bow on his back,
Of course.
but
Gotta
he's
have both ways.
got swords in hand.
Oh. Sorry, I adjusted the mini as the camera was being adjusted.
Jeez.
All right, so let's move on to Keeley.
Yeah, Kaylee also swapping weapons. If I can talk, she's got her crossbow out now. Another example of parallel thought. Our sculpting team has her in this dynamic pose where she's launching herself backwards with her crossbow. At the same time they were doing that, we designed a weapon for her where her kickback crossbow, when she fires it, it throws her backwards or whatever direction she wants to go.
So those are two separate
Those
thoughts?
were two separate things. Brandon Perdue and I designed the cards, and we got the plastic back and went, oh, well, that's convenient because
Oh my
she
gosh.
does that in the game.
That's brilliant. I thought that to be intentional.
And the other detail on this mini is she's got a little mechanical bug hanging out on her shield. As we saw in the preview article that just went up, she gets to build those contraptions. She gets a special kind of terrain that she can put on the map that her skills interact with, and they're mechanical beetles that she gets to send forth to do her bidding.
Nice. All right, moving on to Bryn next. Let's see if I can get her to sit. Oh, yeah, that's perfect. The hammer holds
Yeah.
her just right.
I love this Bryn sculpt. Now that she's got the feather cloak and the tiara. Spoilers on both of those things, kinda. If you're paying attention to the art in Act 1, you might know what happens. And she's got her big old hammer.
Yeah, I do have to
Just
show off
that
cloak
cloak,
a
that
little
motion
more.
cloak
is
is so good.
fantastic.
So great.
They're so
I also
pleased.
like that the shape of her tiara echoes her helmet from Act 1.
Yep.
So that she still has that. We're not sure what any future sculpt might look like. We're still in early planning phases.
Yeah,
But I'm happy to have her helmet represented there because I love that helmet. It's
yes.
It's silly, stylized fantasy art. Of course, it's not practical. Neither are giant shoulder blades or
a
combat
hammer that
heels.
big.
Or,
That's
yeah.
as big as her torso.
Fantasy art is not about being practical.
No.
It's about
Right.
looking cool.
Well,
with a giant helmet.
and like there's showy stuff. There's real showy stuff. There's like this big samurai helmets
Oh yeah,
with big horns
We're getting
yeah.
into historical
and
ceremony
crests
there, yeah.
and all sorts.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was spectacular. Yes, she can't walk through a doorway, but it still looks great. So, all right. And then the last of the heroes that we're going to show close up today, well, kind of, is going to be Chance.
Yeah, Chance has his throwing knives out. He's action pose. He's got his tactical rock, so he can jump off of it. We also took Chance's mask off for this one. Like Galadin, he's found a community. He's found his friends, so he's less guarded. So we've got his.
And it turns out he's just a cute fluffy cat.
And a tactical rock, which I will be using the phrase tactical rock regularly while playing with Chance. Yeah, spectacular. I've
can't
always
really-
It's
loved
not the
these,
only
but-
table thing he'll be bringing around on the table with
Yeah,
him.
Fair.
he can't really sheath his clawed gauntlet, so that's still pretty prominent on the mini because it's just on his hand.
Hold on, let me just
But-
put it in my pocket real quick. No, doesn't work that
Yeah.
way.
So that's it for those four
Yep.
heroes. We've
So-
got 3 other hero minis to look at.
Yes.
3 minis. How exciting! But we'll get to those.
Yes. So we're gonna talk about some of the
Yeah, our
non-heroes.
enemies.
So let's talk about this first. Make sure we got a really good angle on that.
Doom Caller.
So here we've got
One of our new dragon hybrid enemy types.
There we
There
go.
we go.
There we
So
go.
this is a dragon hybrid doom caller, and it is bearing a lot of bells, including a very large one on its back here. And if you look closely, you can see something carved into that. So these bells are carved with dragon runes, and they are how the dragon hybrids use magic.
Yeah,
Because
so-
unlike the dragons who create them, they are not as inherently magical. But they still share some of that, and they use the bells with the runes on them to perform their magic, which was a plot point in Act 1. This is something that was explored
Yeah.
a bit. And now we're getting them on the table as miniatures, as enemies who will have new powers.
So our Doom Callers do all kinds of terrible things to the heroes. As they are left to their devices, their bells just keep ringing louder and louder until they finally just let rip with a big nasty attack. Does all kinds of fun things to you.
Nice. I will say, as somebody who plays Varix, being a dragon hybrid with a bell is great.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Varix's
My
bell.
It's
bell
super
just
cool.
rings out. I can't remember exactly, but I think it was around 42 damage total was my cap because of the ringing of the bell and my number of successes. It was
Yeah.
like,
Well, your cap's
love
going to go
that.
up. So
Our
Hey.
our sculpting
like
team
doing
really went above and beyond. Like, you can see inside this bell on this mini. You can see all these chains, all these great little details. The person responsible for separating this plastic into individual parts that could be assembled by our factory had to do a lot of work to make that happen, but it works really well.
But it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so is our mercenary.
Yeah, the mercenary I love so much because this mini could have been kind of boring. It's a guy in armor with a sword,
Right.
but the pose and the motion to this is so good. This mini is so much better than it could have been. Like,
I'm so glad to have it in the game because it's such a versatile enemy. It can
yeah.
represent cell swords, it can represent warriors and knights, it can represent all sorts of enchanted or ensorcelled enemies of various types.
As much
and
as I
various
love
species.
our Doomcaller, a dragon hybrid with a giant bell is hard to like theme as, oh, this is just a villager who's here.
Right.
Like, no, it's a dragon hybrid with a giant magic bell.
This could be anyone.
You'll be seeing a lot of mercenaries
Yes.
because they're going to play a lot of roles.
Yeah, we have a couple special mercenaries in the campaign too, one of which we'll talk about a little bit more later.
All right. All right. Now let's talk about the smallest one, height-wise at least.
Yeah, our squat little salamander.
Got
My
Salamander.
personal favorite.
Let me make sure we get a good angle on that one.
Dragon kind comes in all shapes and sizes, and our salamanders here are the kind of the hunting pack of the dragon horde.
If you've ever wanted the dragon puppy, this is it. Here it is.
Yeah, short and muscly, and it's got you can see the steam billowing out from between its scales.
Yeah, I would love a dragon puppy, but I don't think my house would enjoy.
I don't think it would.
No.
I've got a pit bull
People
that's built
in
pretty much
people
like
in
that,
wooden
just without
houses
the scales.
shouldn't spit fire.
Does your pitbull? Yeah. Does your pitbull breathe fire?
Breath is pretty bad.
Okay. So
Sometimes,
close.
you know.
Missed
Close.
opportunity to name one of the salamanders after her.
It's true.
But
There is no Bianca the salamander.
that would be spectacular if there was. All right. So we do have one more. Well, I mean, technically, it's
Miniature
gonna be three,
feels
but yes, one more
like
miniature
a weird word to use.
put on the table.
But,
So Brooks, why don't you show us the final miniature, and then for scale,
It's not the final miniature, just the final of the ones we're showcasing.
Yes, and then we'll
there
put the
are
two
more enemy types.
remaining heroes next to it just to show scale. So we're not going to go super close up on them, but you'll get an idea of what they're going to look like. But
Imagine
yeah,
gonna put this
that's,
behind it, so you've got.
that's a miniature.
yeah, this mini is so good, and I'm so happy we were able to put it in the box fully assembled. It's not like the Centurion and the first one where you
Yep.
have to snap it together. This one, you just lift it right out of the box and go. Our plastics team did a great job constructing this one so that it has this incredible table presence and is still rock solid on the table. It doesn't
Yep.
wobble. All of our maps got the
Shake test.
super sophisticated shake test where we built the map, put the dragon on the highest part of it, and then just shook the table to make sure nothing fell down. And they didn't.
Nice.
Or if they did, we fixed it and changed it. So
Right. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, from other things that we as a company
Yeah.
have done in the past, we've done some like vehicles and terrain pieces that are big. That's bigger than most.
Yeah,
of
this
those.
thing fits on a 2x2 base or 2x2 space on the board.
There's no right to.
And it's
And they did it anyways.
and because it's tall, it doesn't run into that problem you sometimes get with big minis like the dragons in earlier Descent. Their wings blocked the nearby spaces, so it's
Right.
hard to move stuff in.
Yeah.
Because this one is coming in for a landing.
Yeah.
It has that nice
Ferrex
vertical
will
build.
have a bit of trouble getting right here, but you can rotate the dragon.
Well, Varix
Right.
is
It'll
pretty
fit
darn
just
tall.
fine, and Varix is the biggest of the heroes. So.
Right.
We should be clear. We do have some more enemies, so let's just put them
Yeah,
out.
there
real
are
quick.
7 new
Well,
enemy
you wanna-
types
Yeah,
them up
we'll
by
just put them out
letter
here.
all together.
We've only talked about half of them today.
I'm sure people are screen capping this and zooming in. They want to see more, but we'll have
Try and get good angles on all of
we'll
them.
show these off more later too.
Yeah. And are you sure that that's what they're doing?
Not everybody. I'm sure, but
100%.
I'm sure the people who are at work right now and pretending they're not watching a live stream are
Yeah.
being a little more chill.
Just a quick snipping tool. Nobody will notice. I've got my spreadsheet on my other monitor.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Nice. So yes, a lot of new minis in the game. Obviously, those are one-ofs of the minis. There are more in the box. But
Yeah.
yeah.
New players who aren't familiar with Act 1 will have noticed that these enemy minis have big kind of gaps in their bases.
Sure. Yeah.
Descent uses colored chips that slot into the base there so that you can tell in the app when it says which mercenary is attacking you, you know which mini to move. They use there's a colored chip that slots in that are in the Act 1 box.
Yep.
So we're not going to wrestle around and dig those out right now. But we picked colorblind safe colors so that you can tell them apart. We matched the color in the app as best we could. And we also used they're numbered notches as well, so you can tell. You have a couple different ways to tell which guy is which.
Yep.
The biggie, Leverax does not have that because there's only one dragon and it doesn't need a color chip.
Don't have to worry about another one coming out.
We did use color chips on the large mini in the first one, and that was kind of a little bit of future proofing in case we wanted, depending on what other products we might release or what that might look like. We wanted that option. The dragon's big enough, we know that we're not going to do more dragons.
Yeah, she's monstrous in the best kind of way.
And leaving that out of the base let them make that base more solid.
Yeah.
It's actually a different kind of plastic in the pillar, so that it's weighted differently, and it
so it keeps the center of
stands
gravity
solid.
lower.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And putting the chips in there would have not worked. So
Sweet. All right. So those are the minis.
that's it for minis.
Let's talk about some punch.
Okay, punch
So-
board. We have a bunch of new terrain types.
It's your turn.
So
So let's put it in the
Like I
easy
said,
bake.
5 sheets. All here. There's a couple new tiles in there too. They're nothing too exciting. They're just some shapes that helped us build better maps.
And combinations of.
We only added these 3 because we don't want to give you a bunch of punch you already have. Like we want to make cool stuff.
This is a good point to remind people. Act 1 is required to play Act 2. You need to have Act 1 for all of its components, even if you're only playing the Act 2
And again,
campaign.
that's so we didn't
Duplicate everything.
Yeah, like if we have to give you all new dice and all of those tiles and all of those tokens, it cuts down what we can put in this box.
Yep.
So we, instead of just adding tiles for the sake of tiles, we added tiles that were useful to our map building. So it's just those 3. You might not be able to see with the glare, but there's some new token types too in here that we've hinted at in our articles, but we'll talk about those more as we need to.
All right. So let's put those in the oven.
Put that
Did
in
we
the
set up
machine.
that 5-minute be right back timer? Because it usually takes a few. No.
Yeah.
No.
I mentioned that our tall pillars were no longer the tallest. So
The
let's start
pillar is
with,
formerly known as tall.
You know, pull out the.
So we
platform.
have a new even taller pillar. Again, lets our maps go up rather than out.
Boom.
So we can build big, impressive maps without making it just a complete table hog.
I'm just gonna
The footprint stays
do
the
this
same.
for
We're just being
visual reference here.
nice and vertical.
There is the top of that pillar. There's the top of the platform.
Yeah, so we've got 4 of those, so we can
From
get
the top-down
a
view.
little crazier with our maps. Again, up instead of out. In addition to letting things go vertical, we also added the bridge, which is shaped just like 2 sets of stairs from the first one, but lets us go from one piece to another. Catching up to some chats here too. We've got some questions that are being forwarded. So monster and stuff from Act 2 will show up in Act 1. The monsters do, and some of the item cards, but not a ton. Terrain's harder just because of how that stuff is built. This game doesn't have procedural generation like some of our other ones, so we don't really have a way to say just put a random terrain piece. All of the maps are custom built.
Yeah. And even if you are playing Act 1 for the first time, if you own Act 2 and you've enabled it, those enemies will show up.
The enemies will show up. The enemies show up, and also some other little bits and bobs we've added. So our heroes have vocalizations they do in the game when you attack. Bryn will give her a war cry. We decided to let our villains have some fun too. So right from the beginning, all of a sudden in Act 1, Necrol is verbally threatening the players when she is being
Yep.
attacked.
Many of our named enemies now have their own sound
So
bites that will play when they attack, when they defend, when they're defeated.
Yeah, we added those vocalizations to the new enemies and then thought, well, let's just go back and slot them in because we have villains in Act 1 that are full of character and menace, and we want to hear them too. So you'll notice those. I'm not even sure you need Act 2 enabled to hear the vocalizations, but you will if you have Act 2 in your collection. Once you're able to do that, once we let you do that in the app, all of these new enemies can show up in randomized spawns. Even the dragon, maybe, although it's a little less likely, just based on the level of enemies you're fighting.
Right.
There's no level 1 dragon.
Jeez. Nope. I would hope not.
So those will show up, and as we've been testing Act 2, we've been tapping through Act 1, and it's really fun to see all these new these new enemy types show up and be
Yeah.
a pain in the neck.
Do we want to segue into what owning Act 1 and Act 2 will look like and then come back to the punch board, or keep going on the punch
Yeah,
board?
we had a question about that, so we can talk about it a little bit. When you have your Act 1 save, when you want to start Act 2, you have two ways to do that. You can import your save from Act 1, where you'll load your save after you've finished the finale of Act 1, and it will have a new city event, a new event on the map that will take you to travel to the city of Arcout, the capital of Terranoth, where Act 2 is based. That will take all of your save data, all the stuff you've unlocked, all the feats you've finished, its record of the enemy weaknesses you've learned, stuff like that, and it will just move you right into Act 2.
All of the decisions you've made over
Yes.
the course of Act 1.
The people you've befriended, the quests you've won and lost, all of that stuff will be remembered and move forward. If you don't have your Act 1 save, you played it a year ago, your iPad fell off a canoe into the water, something like that.
Or if you don't want to use it,
Or if
That's
if
fair.
you just
yeah,
want to
or
play
if you
Act
just
2
want to
with
jump
this
straight
group.
into Act 2, you can't get your lazy good for nothing group together to play the finale for Act 1, and you really want to get started.
I didn't
That kind of
say
thing.
lazy good for nothing. That did not come from my mouth.
We do have something we call the storyteller. You can just launch straight into Act 2. You'll get a kind of long story scene because we're recapping 16 quests, where the heroes will, through a story cutscene, will catch you up on what has happened, let you make some decisions that will simulate a saved game. It will give you
So all of those interactions with people, those
Yeah.
quests you might have won or lost, those treasures you might have found or missed, you'll have some control over what you get, but not entirely.
Yeah, based on how you answer questions throughout that story scene, where things like, hey, did we fought this enemy at this point? Did we? You get to choose whether you won or lost that quest, but it might have different repercussions. It'll change the amount of loot you have in your pool or
Yeah,
stuff like that.
that's super cool.
If you want the perfect run where you've won all the quests and you've kicked all the butts, you're going to have to play Act 1 because the storyteller won't let you do that.
Yep.
Okay.
It'll force you to triage a little bit and say, like, which of these three things did you think was the most important? You're going to lose one of the other ones.
Got it.
But to be clear, losing those things is not story you're missing out on. Other things will happen because of it, but it will
It's
still
a fail
advance the
forward
story.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there will be consequences, but those consequences will lead to more actions, more choices, more story events. You're not missing out on anything.
Right. So that storyteller lets you jump right into Act 2 if you don't have a save, or you can't get to your save,
Or you want to play just Act 2 with this group.
or you
Although,
want to see what happens if some different
yeah, if you've
events
played Act 1, do you want to
Came
have a
through-
different run
come
through?
together.
I will say you should probably play Quest 1 regardless. It is set up as an introduction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Quest 1 of
It has all the
Act 1
tutorial mechanics. in
teaches
it.
you the game in a way that we didn't do in Act 2 because there's a lot going on and we want you to just get started as much as we can.
Yeah. Sweet.
We can talk more about that when we play that quest.
Yeah. We'll have that for you.
I will know all about it.
All right, more terrain.
All right, let's do it. This is gonna be a full table. when
Pass
we're
me some
done
punch
here.
board. Pass me those.
Are you just gonna start building stuff?
So
That's the
we've
fun
got.
part.
It's not the most exciting piece, but we've got a little wagon that can show up in maps that moves around that players can interact with. Again, our art and design team
Let's get a
Put that
character for scale.
put that punch board together. It's utilitarian kind of workhorse piece. I won't do too much
when they get
about
injured,
it.
Right.
We've got some ladders of two different heights so that another way to get from one level to another, again, maps are taller.
Here, we can to scale with pillar.
There we go.
The pillar will give us a good sense of. There's a short ladder. There's a tall.
And then we've got, how am I going to get this in here? Our statue.
Oh, jeez.
Arcout, the city of monuments, is our base for Act 2. And there's lots of statues of heroes of old. We put this one in the game so that it has that nice big table presence. It's also another way for heroes to climb up on things, because we made our maps nice
if you
and
want
tall.
to turn it upright.
Yep.
So this is this terrain piece has 3 spaces on it you can stand on. You'll note it's in 2 pieces. That's so it fits in the box. But because if you give us a tool, we're going to play with it.
We do have a quest where we use the 2 halves of the
we
statue
went ahead
separately.
and made a couple of times in the campaign where you're not going to use the whole statue, you're just going to use one half or the other.
Everything everybody else comes up with on the design team gets used by somebody else to do something else unexpected. I think they specifically
that's a cool
said,
idea.
"Oh,
Let me riff on that too.
Yeah. Cool.
And then
I will put that." For
we
scale.
also wanted ways to let the terrain kind of force the player's hand a little bit, change the way fights go. So we have a couple of pieces that you'll place them like regular terrain, and then they'll have an effect in the app when time passes. First of those is our shrine, our blood shrine. There are versions of that for each of the 3 major enemy factions in the game that at the end of the round, they're going to buff your enemies. They're going to do horrible things to you. This enemy, it might make an enemy immune to certain conditions or give them resistances to certain damage types, heal them,
We haven't told them what resistance is.
make them explode, things like that. Resistances, worth talking about because they're live in the app now if you play on hard mode. Each enemy on harder difficulties and other enemies throughout the campaign, throughout the Act 2 story, might pick up additional resistances. They work just like weaknesses, but in reverse. So if an enemy is resistant to crush, every success you get with a crush damage is going to do 1 less damage.
So folks playing on hard mode, you will have more incentive to be very careful about what weapons you're using.
Take
against
time to
you.
make sure you're using the right tool for the right job and swap weapons around.
So, I'm not playing on hard mode, but if my group never finishes the game, it feels like hard mode, right? We're not able to
So
win.
you will still experience them on certain enemies, especially bosses will have a resistance to
So our
something
bosses
else.
will pick up resistance. One of the things the shrine can do is, like, the undead shrine might make an enemy resistant to shadow damage. So if you're using a trinket that gives you shadow damage, it's less effective against that enemy type.
Makes sense. All right.
Also, end of round things.
Yeah, these are fun ones.
We've got our bell. So that each round,
Go ahead and lay that
the
down.
heroes can ring that bell to give themselves a bonus.
Popped it off.
But if you leave it alone, the enemies are going to ring it, and they'll get a bonus. We included 2 different punchboard bells because we had art for them and we thought they were rad. So you can choose which one you prefer and just swap them out. The app won't make a distinction between the 2. They work
Change
the
the
same. It's just a nice cosmetic option for you. You've got the Dragon Skull Bell and the Rune Bell.
Sweet.
And they get to do lots of fun things.
So combat, somebody asked if combat works the same way as in Act 1. It works similarly. Like we mentioned, the resistances are going to make you, force you to
the
adapt
core
your
system
strategies
has
a little
not
bit.
changed.
These new
we've
terrain
added more to
pieces will force you to, I could go and attack that guy, but maybe I need to run over and take out and destroy that shrine so it doesn't keep buffing all our bad guys.
Or I should ring that bell before the enemy does.
And similarly, as our heroes get more powerful, they get more ways to roll additional dice, so they can do more. They can activate more skills because they've got more surges, or they have more. They're doing more damage. They have more die results to spend on various effects.
We also have, while you're getting the next punch board out, we also have more variations of enemies, even within the existing sculpts. One of the big things I was doing was making sure we had multiple types of enemies of a given sculpt. So when a berserker or when a reanimate or when a vampire shows up, it could be one of several different types of that enemy, each with slightly different abilities, still many of the same characteristics and effects, but 1 or 2 interesting variations to fit its theme or to have it combo better with other enemies of its subfaction. lots more different things to challenge players there.
Nice.
Yeah, and so the Shrine and the Bell both do things on a timer, but heroes can run in and interact with those to get different effects. You can take them out entirely. You can turn that power use it for your own gain. And again, like with Act 1, each of our heroes, because the app knows which hero is doing the interaction, we can give them some special things.
Yep.
Varix, you might be surprised to learn, is very good at ringing the bells and gets an extra bonus. Galadin hates the Athuk, so when Galadin deals with an Athuk shrine, he gets an extra boost. And then Cyrus is really good at dealing with fires.
Well, before we get into the fire, we do have a couple questions, so I'm going to cover them. Oh. So I think you covered it, but I just want to clarify because it was asked in the chat. You said you can stop them, like you can interact with the shrine or the bell, but you can also shut them down permanently. Can you destroy them like the barricades, or is there some other? Okay.
They don't come off the map like the barricades do, but you can shut them down so they don't do anything.
Great.
And you can even gain some power from them yourself if you're so inclined.
Okay.
Right.
Sweet. Another question that came up is, I know it's kind of out of what we're talking about right now, but we still want to get the answer out there. So, when are you going to town between?
Yeah, you're still
missions?
going to this. You're not going to Frostgate. You're going to our couch
yeah.
because we're in a new part of the world. In addition to the shop and the forge and the armory, which we had before, as you recruit different factions to your cause, you can build new buildings in your city. So if you're friends with the Dwarven Alchemist League, you can give the Alchemist League a building, and they'll supply you with potions. You can.
The art on the middle box is not just for show.
That shows
these characters are all the various
different factions you
allies, potential enemies you might face, or you might recruit to your cause.
So in addition to that market,
and the majority of them will show up as characters in the game.
There are new faction buildings you can construct as you make friends with the other factions in the game. They start not really sure whether they can trust you, so you need to prove that you're going to act in their best interest, and then they'll
and
help
some
you.
of your decisions from Act 1 will be pulled forward and affect that.
Nice. Cool. Couple more questions before we get back into
before
this.
we set things on fire.
So the one, we've showed you the playable characters, so we've kind of already answered that question, but people have asked and continue to ask, are there going to be new playable characters?
We did not add new characters in Act 2, and the reason for that is Descent is very much characterized by it's a story about these people.
Yep.
If we added 2 new heroes, how would they slot into Act 1? Would we have to... How would...
Or
would
we'd
they
have to
interact
do a
with
lot
those?
of extra catch-up
Yeah, would
for
they
their
interact with those
stories.
quests, or would it just be, and Fred's here too? Like, we don't want the old Fred's here too. That's not a satisfying story.
I kind of want that just because I like the way you say it makes it sound fun.
Instead of giving new heroes, we focused on what makes our 6 heroes special and let you build in a couple different mechanical ways. So that if you like Galadin, or if you like what Galadin does but want him to do something a little bit different, or you want to lean into more one strategy or another that he works for, you can choose your skills to go that direction.
Yeah, our heroes each have several different avenues they can lean into as they gain more skills, more weapons, more equipment.
Yep.
And then you can blend between those. Also, we have a bunch of new non-player characters who are showing up in the narrative, who are showing up sometimes on the table, albeit only as tokens, or sometimes even as enemies.
Our supporting cast has grown for sure,
and is doing a lot more. So.
And they're reacting to the decisions you make with your heroes.
Okay. And then to follow up with the previous question, talked about going to town in between missions. How many times might we do that?
There are 11 quests in Act 2, which is lower than Act 1 by a little bit, and that lets us make those quests. Each individual quest is a hair... Well, the intro and the finale are a little bit bigger because they're big deal quests.
They're big honkers.
So total playtime is lower than Act 1, but not a ton. I would estimate it at about 45 to 50 hours.
Yeah, and those quests are are very tightly focused on the stories of our characters and the story of the overarching plot. There are no side quests in this that you have the option to engage with or not. Everything here is directly connected to our characters' stories, and through that, the overarching story of the Betrayer's War.
Each hero has one quest where they feature, like Act 1 had 2 per hero, where it was you have to bring this hero, it's about them. Each hero has one quest in Act 2 that is where they are the star, and then we have 5 other quests that are hero agnostic, so you can bring who you want, but everybody will still be present in the story.
Yeah.
And we do some fun things with that narratively.
Right. Like, when you fight the secret traitor in the Betrayer's War, surprise, surprise.
Somebody will betray somebody.
When
It's
the
in
betrayal
title.
happens,
Sorry.
each hero that's in the quest has a different reaction. So if you play with a different set of heroes, you'll get different reactions.
Yeah.
Not only is the box called the Betrayer's War, the quest is called the Betrayal. There's going to be a betrayal. It's on the tin.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
But who betrays who? That's for you to find out, Josh.
Me. Betray myself. All right.
Like
So-
we have a character named the Betrayer.
So let's get back now. I think we've got the questions that we can answer. There will probably be other questions in the chat that we can't get to, but the ones that we can answer right now we've gotten to. So you were talking about fire.
Yeah,
Fire.
Cyrus gets to play
Cyrus-
with fire. Go figure, the guy with a phoenix friend.
Well,
Right.
everyone gets to play with fire.
Everyone can play with fire. Cyrus is extra good at
Not
it.
yet. Not yet. We're saving that.
So fire's similar to the bell and the shrine. Will do a thing when time passes in the app. They will also let, when heroes interact with those, they can get some additional bonuses, including a permanent addition to the amount of damage their afflict does when they afflict enemies. They just make buddies with fire spirits, so the fire spirits will, you scratch their back, they scratch yours.
So this allows the effect from the afflict status to scale up to match the increasing difficulties of
Yeah,
the enemies.
yeah.
In
As long as you are actively pursuing
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Right. In addition to these freestanding fires that are on the map, we also made fire that attaches to other terrain. So we can set anything in the app. I can set anything on fire and you can't stop me.
And we do.
So like here's a bookcase with a fire on it. Here's I think the barricade looks really great with fire just because of the way the angles work. We have 2 versions of it that clip on from the top and from the side. So an early plan was to have the fire have a mind of its own and just spread across the map. That proved to be a little complicated programming-wise for something we weren't going to use a whole lot. So we just, when we need to set things on fire, we just do it rather than let the app do it itself.
Love it.
Teaching robots to set fires seemed like a bad idea.
Right?
And
That is how mankind
and
ends.
setting fires will both spread the mechanical fire effect that applies during combat. It will also affect the interactions you can do with that object. You can't read the books on the bookshelf while it's on fire. You got to put the fire out
Right.
first.
You mentioned the mechanical effects. Fires work like a barricade in reverse. If you're standing next to a barricade, you take more damage. If you're standing next to a fire, you deal more damage. If you can get burning barricades on your map,
Then you,
that's a really interesting place to be.
right. Turns you into a
Somebody
glass
puts
cannon.
burning barricades on maps.
A lot. I like burning things.
Ooh. Nice.
Like I said, we set
It's a
all
really
kinds-
handy
we set
tool
all
for us
kinds of
to
things
have.
on fire. We get
to like add to the
so
ambiance.
we can have trees on fire. We can any terrain piece can be on fire.
I can
don't-
set the statue on
I
fire.
don't think every piece does set on fire because like the big stone statue maybe doesn't make a lot of thematic sense, but it's a tool in our toolbox.
Yeah, I do think that it's fun. As we were preparing for this stream, like, okay, we'll get the fire and we'll get a thing. And you were just like, no, get all the things.
Yeah, I
wanna
insisted
put, I
on
wanna
the
put the fire on
bookshelf.
all
Yeah.
the things.
Yeah. You can't set treasure chests on fire because we don't want to take.
I mean,
your toys
that's
away.
good.
We
Yes,
want you to have your
yes.
loot. Also, I don't know. We don't have a way to clip the fire onto the treasure chest. So
Someone
partly
will
it's
find a
us
way.
being nice, and partly it's we didn't know how to do it.
I wanted to. I wanted to set the chest on fire just so there was an extra
Have the enemies
hurdle
set
to
it
get
on
to it.
fire.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, because like some enemies can take the chests from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's already the threat that people will steal your loot. Bandits are jerks.
Fair. All right. Cool. So I think, I mean, we've talked about the punch pieces already. Are we going to hold off on these? Talk about the cards.
We talked about Kaylee in the article.
We did.
So this isn't
So, yeah,
this
we
is
can
new
show
information
these
if you've
off.
been following our stories. These are Kaylee's contraptions. She gets to put those on the map. Every time if she places more than one, they stack up to make the Tower of Terror that just runs around the map and flambés enemies for her. There are 3 different colors. We don't tell you which one is which. We leave that up to you. If you just like blue and you want to use the blue one all the time, do it.
I want to use all of them.
There isn't officially a right answer, but there's a right answer.
Yeah, we'll judge you, but we won't tell you what the answers are.
All right, sweet. Okay, let's talk about some cards now.
Cards.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of new cards.
There are. We added new skills for every hero, new weapons for every hero.
Do we want to start with the hero card?
Yeah, you know what? Let's do that.
Show
Let's
off
do
the
that.
new art. Again, these have been in the have been previewed in the
Get
articles.
those out of there.
You'll see more of Cyrus and Barracks later. That's the only reason we're not showing you. So there's our new.
The keen-eyed will
So-
have spotted an additional underlay
Yep.
of each type.
So
We wanted
use
more
them
fire,
all.
so we had to give you more fire under, more ember underlays.
So if we want to show these real quick, just to get the art out there, and then obviously people are gonna screen cap the things they
Yeah,
haven't seen yet.
you've seen these before, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on them. You'll note that every hero has 2 surge abilities now, because it becomes a lot easier to roll more dice in Act 2 and just make bigger attacks, so you'll have more surges to spend, and we wanted to make sure you had a good way to do that. A lot of the surge abilities are the Act 1 one, but a little bit better, and then also a second option.
And many of the special abilities are also keeping the theme of the Act 1 effect, but knocking it up a notch.
Right. Like Kaylee still has the ability to put some statuses on an enemy, but the timing of that and the targeting of that works a little different because now she can trigger it off of her contraptions as well.
And Bryn stepped up into leadership role. She can give her extra action to other characters.
Yeah, love it. Love it. All right, so
They also
were we
all
going
have a little bit more health, and they're a little better at skills because they've just been around the block and gotten better at stuff.
Yeah. So we're gonna have the community have us go into more detail about one of these specifically at this point.
Yeah, we can let you guys pick which hero you want to hear more about, and meanwhile, we'll show off some other fun
right.
toys.
Yep. So we're gonna put a poll up there to have you all tell us who you want to know a little bit more about. So Keeley, Gallatin. I'm trying to remember which 2 didn't we do. Chance and Bryn are the ones that you have to choose from. That's right. We're still hiding. I've buried them over here.
Cyrus and Barracks here. They're coming later. In the meantime, we can talk about some other fun toys.
Yes.
We've got some new armor, new trinkets, new consumables you can find throughout the campaign. Some of these could show up in Act 1. Probably not till towards the end of Act 1 because of how we have built when loot drops, but they could show up in Act 1. Some of these we really enjoyed playing with how the app can handle stuff for you and how we can hide some information from you. For example, the tarnished brooch all it says on it is, a stranger is looking for this. Wonder what that means. The app will tell you. Some players might choose to peek at the other side.
No,
what
we're
it
not
might
going to
do.
peek. We're not going to peek at the other side.
Spoiler warning, the other side's really good, and you want to figure out how to flip that card.
Okay. But I do want to say I covered my eyes, but I could still totally see the card. Okay. That was not
We'll leave it.
intentional.
It let us do some fun things. That mercenary, there's a special mercenary that cares very much about this brooch.
Okay.
We've got the Fey Crystal. Again, we don't really tell you what it does, just that sometimes it'll give you a bonus.
Sometimes here and there. You
And the app will do that, and they're pretty nice little.
I think we can show the upgraded side of this one.
Yeah,
Which is
it just happens more often.
Okay.
And that lets you, as you learn what sorts of things it can do, it's a pretty useful buff. Kind of like how the Wanderer's Stone in Act 1 tells you that you'll get an alternate choice instead of just removing fatigue. This is giving you a suite of extra kicker effects that might happen after.
These are fun to do because they let us let the players opt into exploring something or not. If you have your old reliable thing you want to use, you can stick with that too.
And some of
We're not taking any of the equipment away.
And then we also have some trinkets that play with if you are a character that likes throwing out a lot of enemy statuses. The Heartthorn Root makes those statuses a little bit better. So you can, if you like to enfeeble your enemies so you can punish them, there you go. And then when it upgrades, it also makes your afflict better. So if you're a status person, you probably want the Heartthorn Root. If you don't play with them much, like you prefer
Raw damage.
just being the direct approach, that's not the trinket for you, but you've got plenty of choices.
Nice. All right. Well, we did finish our poll.
Yeah.
It looks like Galadin just eked it out.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit
Galen's
more
got
about
lots of
Galadin.
tricks.
Yes.
Yeah, Galadin is the tricksy adaptable fighter. So we've talked about how you might get more dice. You will often get more dice. I think Wind of Blades is a prime example of that. If you just want to keep attacking till something's dead, Wind of Blades is a great way to do that. And then leaning into Galadin's ability to drop statuses on things. If you can get statuses on an enemy, you just get more dice. You get that die without spending anything extra on it. Press the attack similarly lets him add dice to his attack. So he can just... all the heroes have ways to get extra dice. These are some of Galadin's.
Galadin also has some ways to get extra successes.
Right.
Just
yeah.
however he wants. So he can really line up
Yeah.
very strong combos if he's prepared himself.
The
or the
workhorse
enemy
in that is an Act 1 card that lets him add a success for every status the enemy has.
And there are just more statuses now.
Yeah,
There are just more statuses in the game to be applied to enemies.
We added the Confuse status that Galadin has the best and most convenient access to. Other heroes can do it, but Galadin can do it most reliably.
Yep.
When an enemy is confused, it doesn't do its normal activations. It does something that's generally less good. It might hit one of its friends or just walk into a weird place that doesn't help and not be able to attack because it's not able to do its big, crazy spell it was preparing.
Nice.
If you're paying attention to tactics, knowing when to drop Confuse on something is a very good trick.
Speaking of confuse, we should grab that trinket
Or the,
while we're on it.
the
Consumable, yeah.
Glitter Dust Bomb. Like I said, other heroes can get access to Confuse. Glitter Dust Bomb is a great way to do that. If you just have one of those in your pocket and you see the dragon getting ready to breathe fire and everything, maybe don't let that happen.
I usually carry something that's
Yeah,
full
it's just
of glitter.
Just
with
a pocket
me,
full of
right?
glitter.
Just like, got it.
Pocket sand!
Yep.
I would suggest you do check, though, on the enemy screen in the app. Some enemies are immune to certain statuses.
Right.
Yeah, that's
so-
unchanged from Act 1. Some enemies just can't be confused or can't be enfeebled or exposed or it
Afflicted.
can vary. Yep.
I'm stuck on a feat where I need to have
We
something
wanna
die
see
to
some of
affliction.
Galadin's
And you
new
keep
weapon.
fighting animi?
Yes.
Well, let's
Ridiculous.
talk about Galadin weapons and also Galadin legends. So Galadin, like we said, Galadin just has some ways to get extra successes, like his Howling Bow. This touches a couple new things we can talk about. You'll notice its damage is higher than a regular bow. Most bows do 2 damage.
On
This
the
one does 3.
unupgraded side.
Yeah, this is the basic side. You'll see it has the elite trait. All our weapons that do a little bit more damage than normal have that elite trait, so you
And then
know
when you
there's something
upgrade it,
special.
it still has more damage. So you just have a higher ceiling.
Yep, and this one lets you add some successes and also get that shroud condition, or hand the shroud status to a hero.
Nice.
Grab us a shroud token then.
Shroud tokens are let you activate stealth mode. When an enemy activates, you can discard a shroud, and that enemy can't see you. The enemy can't attack you. You don't impede it. It ignores you until its turn is over.
Right. So Chance always has that token.
Chance is pretty good at getting them. Galadin's good at getting them and also handing them to other people. It's a great way to save yourself if you're in trouble. Be aware that when you shroud, your friends aren't.
Right.
Your friends will still get hit unless everybody shrouds all at once.
Bryn and Kaylee are great at taking hits, so you can use shroud to redirect it to the people you want being the defender. But we've had a couple games where people have shrouded to save themselves, and poor Cyrus or Indris has just gotten clocked.
Nice. I mean, not nice, but nice.
So maybe talk it over with your fellow heroes before you use a shroud token.
I wish that were the case, but our Chance just does everything in their power not to get hit.
Well, there's going to be more in their power and aptitude to
Right.
do that.
So statuses or legends are a new card type that heroes can get that give them kind of a passive bonus. One of our goals with adding new cards is we're going up to 8 XP in this campaign. Act 1 ends at 4. Now that you're going up to 8, that's a lot of mental real estate to keep track of all the cards you have. So we added legends that are more passive bonuses. You don't have to think about it. It's Longstrider gives me more health and increases my speed. I don't have to think about it from turn to turn. It just gives me a bonus. There are some conditionals, like Striking Serpent just adds a success to every attack. If you also have an aggression skill card equipped, you roll a blue die instead of adding it. You don't choose whether or not to use those cards. They don't cost fatigue. They're just always on.
They don't take fatigue or tokens either.
So that the mental load is just reduced. You don't have 6 skill cards to keep track of. You still have 3 skill cards, but now you've got some extra.
Yeah.
And
extra
importantly,
things up your
they do not flip. They are double-sided. They have an effect on each side, but they do not flip during play. When you get access to them, you will be forced to choose one of the two at that moment, and you will get that effect, and you will not have access to the other effect for the rest of the campaign.
Right. We
So
present
it's
that.
not a permission decide what you
Right.
get. This
It's
is building
when you
character.
gain it in your campaign. These are the stories people tell about your hero. Is Galadin thought of by the people as the Longstrider or the Farstrider?
Nice.
You can look at these before you lock into your choice. You can pick the one you're going to want.
You can also just pick on theme. All of the choices are tied to some thematic moment.
Yeah. So we wanted players to be able to make an informed choice on that front.
Yeah.
So they can choose theme or they can choose mechanics. They will always know when they're picking a legend what they're locking into.
Nice.
And many of these offer like a boost to one of the multiple different strategies of play for a character. Particularly, several characters have access to effects that increase their movement or their health, but that will only be on one side of the card. So if you like, one extra point of speed is really big.
Galadin can get up to speed 6 depending on his armor, and he's just running circles around everything on the map.
But when you choose that, you are choosing to not have something else. And they cost XP, they go into your pool like skills, so you can choose whether or not to bring the legends along on any given quest.
Right.
It's just once you've chosen which side of the legend you're using, that is the legend you have access to, and the other one you do not.
Super cool. All right. Any other cards I know there are more cards because I see
Lots
them,
of
but
cards.
I'm pretending like I don't. Are there any more cards that you want to show us today?
I like the whirlwind grenade because it's tornado in a can.
Who doesn't want that?
So we have more limited consumables based on every hero has a new consumable they can take that's limited to them and one other hero. Whirlwind grenade lets Galadin and Chance lean into being kind of control-y people who set up exactly the fight they want. So you can use the whirlwind grenade to move enemies around or other heroes. On the other side, it's a burst where you can move multiple things around, and it's just a fun trick to have in your quiver.
Yeah. Just don't throw it at Leverax.
Right.
Yeah, it only works on small figures.
Yeah. So Leverax, or the dragon, and the centurion don't really care about a little bit of wind.
There's also a host of new weapons for each character, armor for all characters, and a couple of new runes as well.
And a couple new universal weapons that any hero can equip. Like in Act 1, they cost XP, but they're a little bit stronger. They come with some pretty potent weapon parts in the app. They also get you access to elemental damage you don't normally have easy access to. I like Sunburst a lot. It's being able, on its upgraded side especially, when you can just afflict all the enemies at once. It's pretty good.
Oh.
Line of sight, not range, just line of sight.
If they can see the enemy you just lit up like a Christmas tree, they're on fire now.
Gosh.
So,
And I want to reiterate that these runes have weapon parts in the app that have additional bonus effects that are not represented by physical components. That's something all weapons have. Other weapons have more customizability in them. The runes have particularly powerful versions.
yeah. They tend to activate pretty often and hit pretty hard.
I'm going to make sure that the dev team for the app just gets me that the first time I play. Jeez.
Yeah, and then there's a new...
Would that be spoilers, though?
I've already seen it, so no, it's fine.
So there's
You don't know
some
how you
new
do it.
armors to give you other little passive bonuses, like some like the Delver's Chain if you're tired of failing skill checks. Delver's Chain's the one for you. The Glimmer Hood.
I just love that art.
If you just want
It's just pretty.
bright and garish clothing, you can use that to just make sure you always have helpful statuses.
The addition of the new conditions and statuses means we have more room to play for some of these effects.
We have more awards we can hand out to players for doing things.
And armor doesn't just have to be a purely defensive bonus. It can do some other
Right.
things.
Yeah.
Right.
Give you other utility, give you, well, like with Delver's Chain, ways to handle skill checks, ways to confuse enemies.
Yep. Super cool.
Yeah.
All right. Are we going to talk about... No, we're not going to talk
So-
about the thinking.
Well, I can...
I mean...
We
I
talked
just
about
think
elite
it's
weapons, but it's just so
spectacular.
cool.
I had
It's
pulled,
just
I had pulled this one as an
spectacular.
example of an elite weapon to show off that trait. Kaylee's new thinking hammer
But it's just so good. It's the
lets
thinking
her
hammer.
get all of her cards that flip and give a different bonus. All her contraption cards and her skills from Act 1 that she can give to other heroes that charge up. The thinking hammer lets her use those faster and more often.
Yeah.
It's also just such a pretty piece of art.
And now Kaylee can
so
say,
good.
"Hand me my thinking hammer."
Exactly. That's my favorite.
Any good crafts person has a thinking hammer.
Nice. All right, so we already talked about the box and how that is part of it. That's something we were going to save until the end, but
Don't
it's
throw
just,
this away.
You can't not
It's a
talk
plain
about it
piece.
as you're opening the
Yeah.
box, right? It's right there.
I've seen some very in-depth storage solutions for Act 1, and I just want to make sure people know that's a game piece. You need
Yes.
Keep it, use it, you need it.
Tis important.
You need it several
it.
times.
My big fear is somebody goes all in on customizing their box before they read through the rules, and they don't have that.
Right. Well, then they'd just have to acquire it via some other means, which we know that if they're putting inserts in their box,
Yeah.
they can probably
Sure.
build that in some way as
Yeah.
well. But still,
Yeah,
don't.
we had to
Yeah.
build mock-ups for
That's
our
useful.
testing,
Yeah.
so.
You need it. It,
Yep.
it lets us do cool map stuff.
Nice. So I know you already talked a little bit about the app earlier and some of the things that have been
Yeah.
integrated from set 2 that are already active right
Yeah,
now.
version 1.1 went live a couple weeks ago and
Yep.
added some of the new stuff we're cooking up for. We have cooked up for Act 2, including some good quality of life things. I mentioned that on harder difficulties, resistances now trigger and make your enemies force you to think a little bit more in your fight. We've also added a campaign log where it will give you a recap of every quest you've done,
Yep.
Which I think Josh's group will appreciate.
including
Yep.
bullet points of important plot details. They change based on what you did. Did you rescue the Witch of the Wilds, or did you fight her? The campaign log will remind you and let you know. It will also give a synopsis of non-quest story events. Because of a weird quirk and how that architecture works, that one can't be retroactive. So story events you've already done don't show up in the campaign log. Kind of a bummer, but we would have needed to have all of you send us your save files so we can change them, and nobody wants that. That's too hands-on.
We don't
So
have time for that.
all the important plot points happen in quests anyway, like the big stuff. So the campaign log lets you go back and review all those things. We talked about the storyteller and how it will let you jumpstart Act 2. Let's see. I know the other
Asmo Connect.
Asmo
Big
Connect
one,
is
the save
is
files.
the big one.
Yes.
We added a cross-platform save function called Asmo Connect, where you can sync your account with on our servers, and then any device you log into with Asmo Connect will update your save.
Yep.
So you can, and that's cross-platform. If you can save on an iOS device and then load your save on a Windows machine, it will let you transfer your save easily from one thing to another. The way it works is if you're online, it will check and see if you have a more recent save than the one you're loading, and if so, it will pull that one. If you're not online, you can, just like always, you can play the app offline. It just won't check for updates and can't sync your save.
Yep. Yeah, I will say that is going to be huge.
Yeah, it was definitely something we wanted. We know some people finished the campaign a year ago, and we don't want them to have to figure out, well, my old tablet doesn't really work so well anymore. I don't really want to play on that one. And we wanted to make sure that people could play the way they want to when they want to.
Right, because you can always go in and just say, okay, well, I beat this, and I got this chest, but I didn't get the same item out of that chest as I got last time, and it just,
So being able to transfer your save was important to us. We wanted to make sure that got in there. Luckily, there's a broader effort in Asmodee to increase our digital games library, so we were able to piggyback off that and use their servers to use the infrastructure that already existed to expand our cross-platform saves and make them better.
Yep. And then I know we've talked about like voices being added and the resistances. Is there anything else from Act 2 that's going to be implemented in Act 1?
Well, so enemies are going to show up.
As I said,
that
enemies
you've mentioned,
can always
Enemies will
spawn
show up
randomly.
in Act 1.
And those can change a lot of how a quest goes.
Yeah.
If
Fair.
all of a sudden you've got a Viper Legionnaire who is destroying your armor.
Well, and certain quests...
They can... Yeah.
Yeah.
And certain quests, because they're so heavily themed around the dragon hybrids or around the Athuk, and there was only a limited number of those enemies in Act 1, with a couple of the neutral enemies mixed in their Athuk or dragon or undead forms. Now that there are more sort of pure dragon, pure undead, pure Athuk enemies, playing those quests again, you will have a much wider variety of enemies appearing, and that will very much change the way they play. Both the actual sculpts and some of the variants. One particular thing is that there are variants of many of the dragon hybrids that just fly, that just can fly over terrain, and that will certainly change several Act 1 quests, I know.
Yep. Nice. Right. So one other question before we get into the next bit I want to talk about. We talked about elite weapons for heroes. Does every hero have one?
Every hero has one elite weapon of each type. So
type,
Galadin has a bow and a set of dual blades. Varix has a spear and a bell.
Yep.
And as a follow-up to that, because I see some people asking, those weapons tend to have somewhat more straightforward abilities. There's a question about they are not purely power creeping out the old weapons.
Right.
Many of your older weapons will have special abilities that play more into that character's synergies, that character's combos.
Yep.
The elite weapons tend to be a little more straightforward, a little more, much like the legends, they are letting you take like a very consistent effect that is pretty strong. But more importantly, you don't have to think about as much to get it to work. Using many of the Act 1 weapons and skills is still very important because you can build them into more combos with more cards available to you and specialize more behind them.
So, like, using Galadin as an example again, his Sentinel Bow does less damage, but it has a much beefier effect. It just gives you a free attack.
Which you can then use to trigger other abilities, apply statuses, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. If you can set it up right, I think we had somebody use the Sentinel Bow to attack 3 or 4 enemies with one action. They had everybody whittled down, and then he could just let loose a volley of arrows and just take everything out. So the elite weapons either take a little more setup or don't have as splashy an effect. It's kind of a trade-off for the extra damage.
Yep.
You'll also probably find them later in the campaign. So if you're choosing between a basic elite weapon and an upgraded non-elite, it's a much harder choice.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So there's one
You got
more
something
thing.
special.
One more thing that we want to talk about. We have one more mini over here that has not hit the table at all, and there's good reason for that. So, for those of you that are planning on pre-ordering this game, if you do so at one of our Hobby Next stores, we've got some really cool Hobby Next stuff for you. So, we created some really fun stuff. I'm gonna hold on to that one. We're gonna show you the dice first. This was real fun, working with them on getting these dice created, because as we all know from the core box, the dice are all colored by the color of the die. We changed these up a little bit just to make them stand out on the table, but still showing you what colors you're working with. Obviously, the shape and size doesn't change at all, so that makes it
Yeah.
super easy. But super excited for these dice and for, Act 2 and maybe needing to roll more dice.
Yeah, I should say you will never need more dice than are in the box. You do not
True,
need an
true.
extra set. We are making sure that no
Act-
hero is going to have the ability to roll 5 dice.
And to
5
clarify,
orange dice.
Act 2 does not contain any more dice.
Correct.
You're
Right.
still using the dice from Act 1. We had a question earlier. The dice function exactly the same as they did in Act 1 because they are the same dice.
And again,
Those
the
are
reason
dice
is,
you're using.
for that is we want to give you
Don't
more
need
new
to give
stuff
you more
instead of
dice.
more stuff that you already have.
Yep. Yeah, but the beautiful thing with these is I can sit and play with my play group once I acquire mine, and I can have the cool new dice, and I can give them they're still nice dice, don't get me wrong, but they can have the old news dice, right? I get the special fancy
Sure,
ones.
but it doesn't matter what dice you roll, you're going to roll poorly.
Oh, it's gonna be real bad no matter what. At least it'll look pretty when I'm doing it. So yeah, we've got those. Thank you for calling that out. It even happens when I'm not rolling dice, where people talk about how bad I am at it. The last mini that we haven't shown, for those that have been paying attention, we've showed Cyrus a couple times.
He's here.
Cyrus is all by himself.
Yeah.
Leave him.
Oh,
Put him there all by himself.
Poor Cyrus. We don't want to go too close on him, though. He's one of the hidden ones, but that's all right. So we got Cyrus.
You're going to
Cyrus
get
is
a cool,
missing a friend.
a good detailed look at Cyrus later,
Yep.
before
So-
too many days pass here.
As we all know, Cyrus has a friend. And
Yes.
Indris is now a separate mini. So
She can fly
Yep.
by herself
Yep.
around the map.
I don't know how in depth we want to get into how that's working right now.
Yeah, so Indris is what we call a companion, which means it's not a hero, not an enemy, new figure type, moves around on the map independently, has her own stats. I don't know. I'll let the marketing team decide. If they're
Yeah,
showing
we're
off
not
this
we're not
card.
gonna
So
get
you
too
can
deep
blame
in it.
them that you aren't
Oh
gonna
no,
get to
this
see
is
it.
all on us.
But Indris gets to move around independently on
Yep.
the map. Cyrus has a bunch of new skills and abilities that can target enemies adjacent to Indris. My favorite is one that lets him attack as though he is in Indris' space. So you can have Indris fly way over there, and then he can just be... So I'm using my wand or my staff to blow up enemies way over there, while I'm over here fiddling with a bookshelf.
And there will be more
Sounds
details
about
on
right.
that.
Cyrus is
in
always
Yeah,
fiddling
future
with
yeah
our
marketing
bookshelf.
material.
you're getting a preview from him.
All right, but we'll go back to the close-up camera to show you for Hobby Next. We decided to try to make Indris look like she's on fire.
I'm so looking forward to putting an LED in this mini.
Yes, very much so. And for me, on a personal level, because, everybody knows that I can't roll dice and that I'm not good at painting, I don't have to do anything
That's
with
true.
her. She's
Yeah.
done. I love
She
it.
looks great as is. My general approach to this game, I don't paint all of these minis super detailed. I do just kind of a wash and an easy coat on them, and I think that'll work really well on Indris too. And then I'm going to slap a light in her base. And
Yeah, I'm going to wait until you do it so that I can see how you did it so that I can hopefully do it right.
yeah, because the whole mini's translucent, you don't even need to do anything too fancy with trying to figure out how to run wires.
Right.
We had some really crazy people with our other minis games.
Yeah.
do a
Oh,
lot
and
of
like
incredible
Ferris
stuff.
paint and stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Yep.
need to do that. She's all see.
Yep, yep.
The whole thing will see through. If you put a light in the base, it'll just
Yep.
creep up the entire mini.
I love it. So yeah, this is for Hobby Next specifically.
Do we
so
want to put that on the little?
we're all right. We're all right.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, we're good. But yeah, so I think we've answered all the questions that we had show up. The last thing is we're going to be at Gen Con.
Mm-hmm.
We do have some events. They are all sold out, so don't go running to Gen Con sites trying to sign up. But yeah, we're doing some stuff with Descent. We're excited to introduce more people to the game, talk more about Act 2 while we're there. And for those of you that are going to be there, stop by, say hi. We'd love to see you. But other than that, I think we're good.
Yeah, I mean, last chance for our listeners. Any extra questions you have that we didn't get to?
All right.
Sounds like
Perfect. Well, thank you both for coming today.
Yeah.
This is always a blast. I love seeing the things without getting any of the story spoiled. So today's been great. When working with you both in the office, though, I have to plug my ears a lot.
There's
But
a lot of fun.
Enjoy it while it lasts, Josh.
I know. It's not going to be much longer. But yes, thank you again. And thank you to all of you for joining us. Obviously, without you, this just isn't the same. So we appreciate you, and we will see you next time. Bye.